Thank you, Belinda, for letting me come into your world and see everything and see all the car paraphernalia.
The madness.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, what was the first inclining that got you, that you knew you might be a car person?
Well, I grew up in rural North Carolina, and my Uncle Jerry, who lived across the street from us, was a car salesman. And every week he drove home some sort of loaner car. And it was always something new and wonderful and fabulous. So my Uncle Jerry used to pass by the house all the time when I was a child, you know, playing outside, and I would get excited to see these new cars.
So let's fast forward to you getting your first car.
It was a one-owner 1972 Volkswagen Karmann Ghia, and that was my first one.
Coupe.
And coupe. And the gentleman was German. He was going back to Germany, and he couldn't take it with him. So the busybody I am, I made the phone calls, introduced myself, said I'd be like the perfect owner for his car, but I had no money, I had no commitment, and no job. But I had that car. He was willing to sell it to me. So I called my best friend at the time, Elise Dudakian, and she had a job at Burger King. I said, Elise, I need a job, and I need it like now. And so within an hour, I had the job at Burger King. And because I knew I wanted to go look at the car that weekend, by that weekend I had a 1972 Karmann Ghia. And I think I was getting my driver's license like within that next 2 weeks or something like that.
Things were happening.
Oh yeah, I'm that kind of person. Like if I need something to happen, there's like it's gonna happen. So that was my first car.
Obviously, it's German car theme is starting to move.
Yep.
How did the Mercedes mark become such a dominant mark in your life?
I got hit on the 101 freeway and almost lost my life. And so after that, I knew I needed a safe car. And I started researching and realizing that, you know, Mercedes really I was after a 280 SL Pagoda.
Okay.
Ended up with a 220S fin-tail four-door sedan. So I went in looking for a convertible, ended up with something completely opposite. So I got this car and I thought, okay, I got to know everything about it. That's like the kind of person I am. You know, I don't like to have something I don't know about. Mm-hmm. And so started doing research and found out that in 1962, my car is a 1962, but in 1962, the W111 220S Fintail was raced by these two incredibly strong, brilliant women, race car drivers, Iwi Rosequist and Ursula Worth. And so they were pretty fabulous for their time. I mean, 1962 race car drivers that were beautiful. They were beautiful as well. They weren't just, you know, they didn't look like men. They looked like your average beautiful housewife. They were racing in a 1962 Fintail. So they entered the Argentinian rally. It was a touring rally, so it was a race over a course of days. And in Argentina, it was a very dangerous race. It was mountainous, muddy, rain. There were several people, drivers who died. Cars went off cliffs, cars crashed, cars burned up. You know, half of the people didn't even finish the race. But they were laughed at. They were mocked, worldwide mocked. And not only did they win, but they won 3 hours ahead of everybody else. So that really connected me as a strong woman, and I was a business owner at the time, and you know, in a man's world, and you know, I really connected with that story, and it kind of became my platform to share, you know, the story with others and connect with other women to let them know about these women. But the fact that they won that race in a car like that, in a family sedan, really, truly. Really proved to the world that car was viable for the masses. In my opinion, and worldwide, that's a pretty important car.
What's the one motto you would tell car people?
Buy the very best that you can afford. Do not waste your money on the flashy car. I bought certainly my fair share of cars that have Bondo on them, And I mean, one car I had, I swear it was being held together by the rust molecules holding hands and the Bondo gluing it together. And so I wish that I would have become more educated on what I was buying. And that's one thing I tell young car buyers: save your money and buy the best thing you can afford. And gather around enough people that know more about it than you do. I don't know everything about my cars. I really don't. I'll be the first person to tell you. But I try to listen and bring people to me and being open to people who are going to feed me information, because I love that. You can't know every single thing. Do not buy the first car that you just go, oh my God, I love it, until you have it inspected. And because there's nothing worse and there's nothing more expensive than a cheap car.
Tell me about the feeling that you have driving. I mean, obviously the Mercedes marque is something that you're passionate about.
I am. Mercedes would never be Mercedes if it wasn't for Bertha Benz. Do you know about her?
Tell me.
Okay, so Bertha Benz was the wife of the engine builder Carl Benz. She used her own inheritance money to back and bankroll him. And she was an investor in his company. Not a lot of people know that. It was her inheritance money that put him, in business. And she believed in his engine so much that she took out the patent motor wagon one morning and took it across country, or across the town, I guess you could say, and drove it with her 2 sons in tow, young sons. And back then that was horse and buggy. That was it. And so she drove this, it was like a UFO to people who no one had ever seen it. And so she drove that car, or they called it the motor wagon, the patent motor wagon. She drove that car across, roads that were not, paved. So when she broke down, she fixed that motor wagon with a hairpin. She unclogged the fuel lines and the oil lines, or some of the lines, with her hairpin. She tied off some of the hoses with her garter belt. She stopped for petrol. At that time it was sold at pharmacies, so she had to get it from a pharmacist. It was the first automobile that had driven long distance, and it was driven by a woman. So when she got back, she actually redesigned the gear shift system in that car, because she realized that, she needed to downshift, upshift, on the hills. And in that day, women could not apply for patents. It was actually her that redesigned it. So I have a great deal of respect for her. I like to carry on that story, and I'm very proud to tell it.
Belinda, I want to thank you for showing me a window into your world, and it's fascinating and beautiful to see.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being able to have the opportunity to share my story and share my passion, in hopes that I'll inspire, the younger generation to continue pulling these out of garages, continually to put money into them, and to get them out on the roads and enjoy them, and be able to share them with others.